Peace be upon you. You just stepped into the world of Golden Dune stories, where every tale breathes and every word sparks the imagination. We don't just tell stories. We invite you to live them. Become a part of our growing family. Subscribe and hit the bell icon to ensure you never miss a chapter of our journey. Let the magic begin with our very first tale. In one of the crowded, popular neighborhoods of the city of Amman, where life is hard and opportunities are scarce, lived a young man named Khaled. He was poor but ambitious, always dreaming of escaping the cycle of poverty and debts that he had inherited from his father. He married Fatima, a simple girl who carried sincere love for him despite knowing his difficult financial situation. After their marriage, Khaled tried with all his effort to provide a decent life for his wife, but the circumstances were harsher than he had expected. He began working in more than one job, but he did not earn enough to pay off the accumulated debts he had inherited from his father. In addition to loans he was forced to take to start a small project, which quickly failed. Creditors began knocking on his door daily, demanding their money. Fatima stood by his side, calming and encouraging him. But deep inside, she felt afraid that their patience would eventually run out. One day, Khaled received a direct threat from one of the creditors, warning him that if he did not repay the debt soon, the consequences would be severe. Khaled could not bear the pressure, and the idea of escape began to take control of him. He knew that Fatima would never agree to this, but she would not be able to stop him if he disappeared without telling her. On a cold night, while Fatima was asleep, he took the little money he had left and left the house without leaving any message. Fatima woke up in the morning to find herself alone. She searched for him everywhere, asked his friends and relatives, but no one knew where he was. The shock was harsher than she had imagined. He had completely disappeared. Fatima suffered greatly after her husband's departure, but she did not give up. She decided to work in sewing, and over time she managed to build a good reputation for herself. As for Khaled, he fled to the distant city of Aqaba and began working at the port for a modest wage. But luck was not on his side. He kept moving from one place to another, and every time he tried to start over, he found himself back at square one. After years of suffering, he heard about a businessman looking for workers for a new project in another country. So he decided to go and work there. 10 years passed, during which Khaled became a completely different person. He was no longer that fleeing young man, but more mature and experienced. One day, while working at a large company, he heard a familiar name. It was Fatima. At first, he thought it was just a coincidence. But when he approached the office that managed operations, he was shocked to discover that the woman sitting there was his former wife, Fatima. She had become a successful businesswoman. Her sewing workshop had turned into a large factory, and she had bought a share in the very company Khaled was now working for. He never expected that the girl he had left in poverty would reach such a position. He had to face her at last, but he did not know how to begin. At the end of the day, he approached her and said in a trembling voice, "Fatima, I am Khaled." She looked at him in surprise, then said calmly, "I know." He was stunned and asked, "You know? How?" She replied with a faint smile, "I was looking for you all these years, not to get you back, but to see how your story ended." Khaled was silent for a moment, then said, "I'm sorry. I know I let you down." Fatima replied firmly, "Yes, you did let me down, but I didn't allow myself to break. I learned that life does not wait for those who run away. It gives opportunities to those who face it with courage." He looked at her with admiration and sadness, realizing that running away had not been the solution. It had been the biggest mistake of his life. As for Fatima, she had overcome her past and become stronger than he had ever imagined. Khaled stood before Fatima, feeling a mix of regret and awe. She was completely different from the girl he had left behind. She had become strong and confident, while he was still trying to correct his mistakes. He sighed deeply and said, "I never deserved you, but I'm happy that you found your path." Fatima looked at him for a moment and said, "Do you know what truly hurts me? Not just that you ran away, but that you didn't even try to fight for us. I believed in you, but you chose the easier path." Khaled lowered his head, feeling ashamed of himself more than ever. He realized that he could not change the past, but he could at least try now. Days passed, and Khaled worked hard at the company, but he did not dare approach Fatima any closer. She treated him with respect, but with clear coldness. She did not hate him, but she no longer saw in him the man she once loved. One day, one of his colleagues offered him an opportunity to travel to a new country to start a different life, far away from his past. It was a tempting option, but he knew that this time he could not run away. He had to face his decision with courage. He decided to go to Fatima one last time. He entered her office, stood firmly before her, and said, "This time I won't run away. I will only leave if you are certain that I no longer have any place in your life." Fatima looked at him for a long time, then said, "Khaled, courage alone is not enough. Trust is more important, and you lost it long ago. But if you are truly remorseful, you won't prove it with words, but with actions." That sentence was like a door that was not completely closed. Fatima did not want to give him false hope, but she left room for him to prove change. Khaled decided to stay, to work hard, and to prove that he had truly changed. It was not easy, but this time he was not looking for the easier path. He began developing himself, learning more about business management, and becoming more committed. Fatima watched him in silence, seeing the change in his behavior, though her heart remained hesitant. She was not ready to give him her trust easily, but she could not deny that she was seeing a different version of him. After 2 years, when the company decided to open a new branch, Fatima received an official letter. Manager of the new branch, Khaled Hassan. She held the paper in her hands and remembered the night she woke up to find him gone. But this time he had chosen to stay. On the opening day, Fatima stood before him and said with a faint smile, "This time you didn't run away." He looked at her confidently and replied, "Because I learned the lesson." She smiled and said, "Perhaps this time you have a real chance." Khaled looked at Fatima with eyes filled with both hope and fear. He was not sure what her words meant, but they were a sign that the past might not be an obstacle forever. Days passed, and Khaled successfully managed a new branch. He worked tirelessly and earned everyone's respect, including Fatima's. He was not only trying to prove himself as a businessman, but as a man who could be trusted again. Fatima closely observed this change. She was not ready to give him her heart easily, but she began to see something she did not expect. A man different from the one who once ran away. One day, Fatima received an attractive investment offer from a foreign company that wanted to buy her factory for a huge sum. The decision was difficult. She had to choose between preserving her legacy or starting a new adventure. She turned to Khaled and asked, "What would you do if you were in my place?" This was his first real test. Would he choose the easier path as he had in the past, or prove that he had changed? He thought for a moment, then said confidently, "I wouldn't sell the factory. It wasn't just a project. It was proof that you could succeed on your own. Selling it now would mean giving up everything you built with your own hands." Fatima looked at him deeply and saw sincerity in his eyes that she had never seen before. This decision confirmed for her that the man before her was no longer the young man who once ran away, but someone capable of facing life. A few days later, Fatima decided to reject the offer and stay in the market. She asked Khaled to become an official partner in managing the business. That evening, they stood together on the office balcony, looking at the city that had witnessed their fall and their rise. Fatima said quietly, "I think you deserved a second chance." Khaled smiled confidently and replied, "And I won't waste it this time." Thus, the ending was not merely success in business, but the beginning of a new life that neither of them had expected. Tell me in the comments what you think of the story. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more exciting tales.